Thanks everybody for joining tonight. We're up to number 6 in our series of Living Vicariously, our Nuffield webinar series. So I hope you are not suffering from webinar fatigue, but I'm sure you are. Most organisations have really jumped on board and are offering many and varied webinars. So this is just one of the webinars that I'm sure you're getting plenty of invitations to. So I really appreciate you being able to log in tonight, this morning, tomorrow, wherever you are, and in whatever time zone. So we've got 2 guest speakers this evening, one from Western Australia. So for Johanna, it's a little bit earlier in the afternoon. Johanna is a 2019 scholar. And our second speaker is Ollavo Tinoco from Brazil. And so for Ollavo, it's very early in the morning. It's only just 6 a.m. for him, but he is a farmer and an early riser. So he assures me it's no problem at all. I think I'm with him. I would prefer an early morning. I was on a call last night at 11 p.m. till midnight, and it was tough for me. I'm not a evening person, generally speaking. So I will hand it over now to Johanna, and Johanna and Ollavo will be able to do their own introductions. As Nuffield scholars, we're all very used to doing introductions and doing them well. As you've got questions, please put those into the chat and I can be asking them as we go through, which is just a little bit easier than people putting up their hands when we've got so many on the line. We will take some questions after Johanna's presentation as well. So, you know, save them up to the end there. And then after Ollavo's, Johanna's going to try and stay with us for the entire period of the webinar, but she does have a function to go to this evening. So we'll see how we go for time. As usual, we'll go just, I would imagine, just over the hour. So an hour and 15. But please, if you have to leave, send us a message in the chat. And I will thank you now for your attendance. So Johanna, if I can hand over to you and your slides.
Thanks so much, Jodie, and hi to everyone. Congratulations on being a good scholar, and disappointed for you all that it's turned out the way it has, but I'm hoping today with some information that Ollavo and I would like to share with you that we can in some very small way contribute to your learning. So Jodie asked me to put this up for you as a start for today's session. Is everyone seeing that? Everything is fine. So as Jodie mentioned, tonight's focus is on adjusting your scholarship to COVID, that year of living vicariously. Just a little bit about me. So as Jodie mentioned, I'm a West Australian Nuffield scholar from 2019. I'm a city girl, born and bred, but I spent my early childhood in the Pilbara, and I guess I just couldn't take that out of me. I met my farmer in 1996, and the rest, as they say, is history. We've got 3 kids, 16, 14 and 10. We're a family partnership, my husband and I, and we're based on the south coast of Western Australia. In our business, we have the farming operation, and as a sideline, there's some project management consultancy, which is my jam. So our property is broadacre, dry land, non-irrigated in Western Australia. Oops, sorry. And we are here. Here's my massive big dot for you. We've got a bit of a geographical spread. Properties at Bremer Bay, which is about a 520 mil rainfall average, and in Albany, which is 700 mil, so just about 4,000 hectares in total, which is about an average size operation for our dry land farm out at Bremer Bay. We have 3 full-time staff. They all live on the property with their families, so they all go to the local schools and they shop and buy local. So we like to think we're contributing to our local community as well. We are a sheep, breeder cattle, beef cattle, grains and fodder operation. They tell me it's a Mediterranean climate, but we're in the 3rd year of well below average rainfall. So it is a land of extremes. So I just wanted to probably show you a bit of that with some of these images. So 3rd year of drought, it's probably not foreign to many of us, the extremes that we get in farming. We get quite significant wind events, so they say decile 10 wind events, and when they're combined with decile 1 rainfall events like we've had in the last 3 years, it's obviously very hard to hide from the you know, horribleness of that. But then in stark contrast, and as you know, so fires, obviously Australia's known for its bushfires as well, and we've had quite a few of our boundaries set alight in the last few years. But then it's the land of droughts and flooding rains. You've all probably heard that about Western Australia. So this photo is only 4 years ago. Canola flooded, essentially. So very extreme sort of climate, I guess you could say. So just some machinery photos here. So we like to keep everything in-house. We do a lot of our own stuff, make our own hay, make our own straw, grow our own grain. We value add our grain as well through our cattle feedlot. We produce canola, which is just about all bound for, 99% of it bound for the ISCC market in Europe. We conserve fodder, so pit silage is something we're fairly big on. Just making hay while the sun shines, as they say. So we've got breeder cattle, they're predominantly Angus. There's my young bloke. I think we might have a farmer in that one. And we run all sorts of gear, new gear, old gear. Some gear is older than me, and sometimes it's even older than Wayne, my husband. So it's always interesting. It's, you know, it's a big fleet of some aged, some not aged. So maintenance of machinery is a big, you know, operation in terms of keeping those workmen busy. In terms of what we do besides farming, we live on the coast and we love the south coast. And I'm just going to gloat a little bit here. So we do like fishing. We love spending time by the coast. We're very outdoors sorts of family, and love white sand beaches. So there's a few of the south coast, and that's where we anchor up and dive off our boat sometimes when we're not busy on the farm. So when I started my Nuffield, I wanted to look at soil acidification. It's a big issue here in Western Australia and more generally across Australia, with pHs decreasing in soils and impacting on productivity. My topic, however, did evolve as I travelled. It became more me, essentially. So at the moment, it's looking like it's beyond production. So if we're not going to address our soil health issues, what's going to force us to? Or what opportunities are there for us to really move into improving soil health? My travels last year took me to the USA, Singapore, Hong Kong, the Philippines, China, Germany, Ireland, Argentina, Brazil, and New Zealand. So 14 weeks. And for those of you who know this, at the time, the Australians were supposed to do 16 weeks, so I was cut short. But I think, despite, you know, I'm obviously extremely grateful that I had the opportunity to travel, it was a very interesting time to travel as well. So we started off with our CSC in the Midwest, and Nebraska had major flooding experience. Missouri broke its banks and caused millions and millions of dollars worth of damage. Brexit was happening early last year as well, so there was obviously lots of UK scholars informing us of how that was going to impact on various things. I travelled through California and noticed how many migrant workers there were, and then it was, you know, really interesting about, you know, the border issues with in America, and of course now we're really seeing border issues playing out even in Australia with our hard borders between states currently, and how that can affect production and movement of food through the landscape. We headed into Southeast Asia just as the African swine fever was breaking out. So we got to see how fearful, I guess, the industry was. And then we got into China and there wasn't really much talk of it. But yeah, then we popped out into Germany, and of course they were very fearful of it as well. We were in Hong Kong when the riots were starting. And I don't mean to be political at all in what I'm saying here, but as an observation, politics obviously plays a very, very huge role in agriculture as well. It's very interruptive from what I've seen. So there we are in China. And the next day we were at the the Great Wall in Germany. When we were in Ireland, obviously Brexit and its impact on beef production was very obvious as well. A lot of concerns there with the Irish beef farmers. I travelled into South America, and in Argentina, again, there was elections happening and looking and how they were going to be changing their complete production of grain because of the export taxes they'd face if that happened. Brazil was being accused globally of burning the Amazon, and then I came home and Australia was actually burning. There were massive wildfires all over Australia last summer. And then I was thinking, well, actually just about everywhere. I talked about drought as well. So there's these big global things happening in a very interesting time of the year. And then of course, in March, it all really hit the fan, COVID. So the impacts on my research, I was in New Zealand going to attend the triennial, had tried to do some research in the first week, but obviously doors were closing quite quickly with government agencies, of course. So I very quickly decided to go home, and we isolated on the farm and put the kids out of school and all those sorts of things. We have very tight border restrictions in WA. We do have low infection rates, and as far as I know, there's no community spread to date. So bringing the kids home, obviously homeschooling happened with 3 different grades, and I think teachers are amazing now. I did before, but now I really think they are. So obviously all of that interruption created havoc, and essentially my research was delayed. I started up again with Zoom interviews in April, May. I finished that, and I'm still working on my research and my report. In all of that, I have to say I'm very grateful for all the networks that I did develop, and particularly obviously Nuffield Australia in their ability to understand where we're all at and how we're trying to still work through it all. So I guess from my, it's only 2 weeks, it's not my entire scholarship, but I just wanted to give you some insights into what I experienced with the virtual interviews. I think the biggest trap for me was not having the dedicated and separate time from the business, the farm and the family. I just still really struggle with that. I spoke to my mentor about it on numerous occasions, and even more recently he said, Johanna, you actually need to leave your house. You need to go away for a week and just write your report. So that does sound ideal. It's not practical currently, but anyway, you really do, as you probably already know, have to have dedicated and separate time for your Nuffield. You need to prioritise it. It really, you likely already had planned for the time away, so just really make sure that you attend your Nuffield. If you're not prepared for interviews, they will not be of much value to you or the person you're speaking to. You have to maintain control of the interview. You will likely get a lot of people that want to talk, and as people become more familiar with this sort of interaction, there might be that temptation. So I guess be strict with what you want to get out of it. And also, I guess, don't go into the interviews thinking that you have all the answers, because then you might miss the pearls. Obviously, having experienced the travel, I can say that it is really only one element, but there is another really amazing element of Nuffield, and that's the networks, and I'm sure you're already starting to appreciate that. If you haven't already started with your network building, I just really encourage you to light the fuse. It will only take 1 or 2 really key conversations with a few people before, and being open to expanding your networks before it really starts. And as soon as that fuse is lit, you will have people coming to you, you will have doors opening for you. So use and build your network. I can't understate enough, it can't be understated rather, your Nuffield network. So yourselves as your 2020 cohort, your in-country cohort, and also please do remember that the 2019 colleagues are here for you as well. Some of us were quite interrupted, me not so much, but others have been. And so they sort of have a little bit of an understanding of where you might be at. And of course, there's your own networks and your own industry, so work with all of them. You need to dedicate time to Nuffield, as I've mentioned. It needs it. and you actually deserve it. You obviously were given this opportunity because you are worthy, so please do dedicate your time to it. You have to remove yourself from your day-to-day, go to a different space, take time away. You have to switch off that outside world. So when you do go into your space, turn off everything else. Turn off the emails, turn off the iPhone, messaging, turn off all your alerts. Don't be interrupted, because those continual interruptions are going to be very difficult to manage. Hard border style, guys. So in terms of the interviews, this is sort of a mixture of what I did and what I thought might be better. You start with an introductory email, whether someone makes an introduction or you just cold call, introduce yourself. Give them the who, the what, the when, the why. If you can provide a personal connection, as in I got your name from such and such, or I used to go to school with whoever. If there's some sort of personal connection, that might, be good. Give them the background you need in a pretty short and succinct email. And if they do want to delve deeper, have links in there for, your Nuffield page or your socials, so they can go and see, and verify what it is that you're doing. Don't put too much in the email, but have that all there. You could do a phone call as well, but I guess that wasn't the way I did it. If you're more of a pick up the phone person, you could do that and have the same sort of approach to it. I found diarising was very, very important. So organise your meeting time and connection type in advance. Scheduling tools are really handy, not just for you, but for them on the other end as well. So just go straight into their Outlook diary, for example. Be prepared. So if you've organised a meeting with these people, do some pre-interview research, because you haven't got the benefit of being in country. You're not experiencing that. So it's not only the pre-interview research on the person, but also their organisation, the country, the region. So you have a little bit, going on there. So yeah, just make time for that. Obviously, observe all the virtual online protocols. Use the face-to-face option. The face to the name can't be, again, underestimated the power of that. One of the most really challenging and invigorating sessions was when I had a couple of people in one organisation and me having this really open and frank discussion about a topic. So if you have room or you're comfortable with having more than one person in an interview or having like a focus group approach, take the time to set that up, because I think you'll find a lot of value in the discussion, not just the questions and the answering. It does take a bit more time to plan that out, and you could possibly request more time. I think really an hour and a half cuts you out, because that's a big commitment, and that's probably all you'll really get with a face-to-face anyway. Have a plan for your conversation, but also be flexible. Like with Nuffield, and even when I was travelling, you sort of have to be able to, I'm sorry, I'm going to use a buzzword, pivot, to follow the opportunities where they present. Break the hour up, just have a bit of a plan, introduction, some questions, maybe some discussion, maybe some thought-provoking comments or questions to really help you delve deeper. You want the interviews to be challenging for you as well, because I think that's an element of the face-to-face. And some interviewers are really good at really challenging you. So don't shy away from being challenged, and make room for that in your interviews. I don't know how you deal with the paddock inspection stuff. I probably would look to Ollavo if he's got any recommendations around that. I didn't need to do that because I had been in country already, but consider that and how you might be able to see what they see. Obviously, set some goals, because then you can feel a sense of achievement if you're ticking off, well, I wanted to do 5 interviews this week, or wanted to do 5 this month, whatever it is. Just be mindful that you need to see progress. So set some goals and tick them off when you're getting there. Don't forget, when you finish an interview, just have a little bit of time to reflect and consolidate your thinking, and maybe adapt your research style or your approach or your topic. Don't shy away from conferences and online learning. You've obviously got the the world being thrown at your feet in terms of online learning, but yeah, I guess you're probably at a point where you need to pick and choose very carefully there. As I said, be open to being challenged and try and make room for that. The professionalism part, I don't mean this literally, but I do mean to say, if you are having an interview for your scholarship or in a presentation, please wear your Nuffield network and Nuffield badge proudly. So yeah, wear the suit. If you're there, you're wearing the Nuffield suit essentially. So remember is to ask for help. One of the values of Nuffield is reciprocity. We all know that, and we're all happy to give back. So please don't be shy in asking for help. That is me. Hope that was of some value to you.
Thank you, Johanna. We had a couple of questions come through on the chat. The first one was from Kate. She said that maybe you answered it, but I think you could probably expand on it for us. So I'll just read it out for you. I know you can see it there. Wondering whether the contacts you formed on your travel transition to Zoom interviews, or were you Zoom interviews contacts that you made after you had travelled? And I think
they were a bit of both.
Yeah. I think
so I was in country.
Go ahead.
So I did reach out to the Nuffield network in New Zealand through my Nuffield network in Australia. Actually, it was Jodie who put me in touch with a few New Zealand scholars. And from there, prior to even getting in country, had established a range of interviews. And it was just that I had to pause it while everyone was adapting to, because obviously New Zealand went into lockdown straight away. So they were very interrupted, and there was no possibility of meeting with them when they were in that initial phase. So I just resumed meetings when they were ready, late April, early May. And then once I started with those interviews and they were, a bit more open to doing business again, the connections then again went out from there. So like I said, you just need to light the fuse. It's 1 to half a dozen critical connections that you then use to be the catalyst for opening up that network.
Thank you. I think Susan's question follows on from that, because Susan has also a 2019 scholar, has made the observation that when she made some cold calls, either by phone or by email, they were a little bit more reluctant to share than if you're able to get in front of them face to face. Did you find that happened to you as well?
Yeah. No, I was pretty lucky in that I was fairly advanced, as I sort of articulated, with that networking. So had already had all the, I got your name from such and such, or Kate introduced an email, did an introductory email. There are always going to be people that don't want to engage. And I hazard a guess that that might have even happened if it was a face-to-face request as well. Nuffield opens doors, but some doors just don't open at all. So I think there's an element of that. I did suggest, and I'll just reiterate, if there is a possibility that you can include a personal connection or a phrase around, I got your name from so-and-so, or just look for the opportunity to make a connection, because it is like cold calling. I guess that's why I lean towards email rather than the phone, but I'm that sort of person as well, because you can put that little bit more detail in there. And I think it's important also you don't want too much detail in the email, but if you have links, so if people really want to find out what you're after, or verify who you are, or verify who you work for, what your go is, that they can go off and find that from that one email rather than just ignoring it. And I would only typically go back one more time to follow up, and then I would just leave it if they're not responding, because you've got lots to do. And if you're harassing them, I feel I would be starting out on a negative front.
Thanks, Johanna. Do we have any other questions from the floor? You can put up your hand and hopefully I will see you. Otherwise, if you think of any other questions, please type them in the chat while Johanna's still with us. And we'll move on to Ollavo. Thank you very much, Johanna. That was excellent.
Thanks, everyone.
Hi, hello, good morning to everyone, and good evening, depending on where you are. My name is Ollavo Tinoco. I'm from Brazil. I'll just put on my presentation over here. Just a second. Everybody seeing it's okay?
Thank you, Lavo.
Oh, I hope.
Yep.
Okay, good.
Yep, we can see that. Thank you.
So a little bit of introduction. I live in São Paulo state. It's in southeast of Brazil. My family and I, we have a farm from around 900 hectares. We have laying hens. We have 400,000 laying hens on conventional system, caged chickens, and we have sugarcane. The property started with my grandfather in 1945. We have farming the same place since then. I am the third generation, and I did agronomy for my university. I worked a couple of years outside in Louis Dreyfus, and then I came back home. During my Nuffield journey, I visited 11 countries, around 17 weeks of traveling. So I was able to finish my whole traveling. My focus on my research was family succession in agriculture. So I was able to visit more than 50 families in business in agriculture. What Nuffield gave me was like a really open-minded culture. I was thinking only on the more like a focus on the big farms in Brazil or South America, and this gave me a different view from a lot of the other countries. But the best thing for me is also the better understanding of my country, because I learned how people were seeing Brazil, and I had to talk about Brazil. So it was a really good thing to me, and the capability of overcome every kind of small challenge. This was like one of the biggest goals, achievements from the traveling. And just a little bit about my topic. My first idea was that I wanted to research about how taxes, laws, and the economic freedom of each country would differentiate the family succession itself. If it will be, if you have a country that has a more simple way of taxing the family, would be a facilitator of the family succession. So I was thinking to visit a broad variety of countries like Israel, China, maybe some countries in Africa. But after my GFP, the focus changed to the family itself, because I realized that if the family is aligned in one same goal, the succession will happen. So the family dynamic is far more crucial to succession than the laws or the taxes from each country itself. But in the middle of this traveling and learning, we had COVID. I was traveling in Australia. I started in Melbourne, driving up to Brisbane to the CSC. I was going to talk at the CSC, and then I was going to New Zealand to the Triennial. But when I left Brazil to go to Australia, the only recommendation was that like use a little bit of hand sanitizer and do not shake hands. And then every day of my traveling was like a border was closing, or the cases were increasing worldwide. We had the first case in Brazil, the first case in the United States. Borders were closing down, and I got the last flight from Dubai because New Zealand was closed. So for just a little bit, I was going to be locked down in Australia, and it was good to teach myself to was almost like in the war. It was like it was a fight with COVID. I have had to take a decision every day because the news were changing every day. So finally I got back home, was luckily to get home. had to be the quarantine, do the COVID tests and all the procedures. After this like 15 days of quarantine, I was like, it was really hard to fit in because I was planning at least the first part of my year to continue traveling. So I was like doing the missing traveling syndrome, what I call it. You know, I had all the in Texas, Canada, and maybe in Africa later. So I had to digest that. Okay, well, you need just to go back to work and not thinking in traveling again. And it was hard to fit in because some of my functions in the farm were passed on to my father or to the manager, and I was like taking back it again. It took I would say it took 60 days for myself to fit in. And then after that, I had probably 1 month working, and then I started thinking in my final report. So I recommend you to do not do that. I take almost a 3-month break, and it's hard to get back, as Johanna said. Compromise yourself, do at least 1 interview, 2 interviews a week, so you can do not lose contact with your scholarship. And I think it's crucial for you guys because you not had the opportunity to travel yet, only to the CSE. And the individual travels are like this, and when you get really in contact with just yourself and your scholarship, and you are doing this by online interviews. So now I'll just do a small overview about Brazil in the COVID in agriculture. I thought that it was really hard to get data about the COVID and etc. because there are several problems about how this case were confirmed and etc. But this is one of the ones that I think was more trustful. And Brazil is one of the top 3 in cases and also the top 3 in recovered cases on COVID. We had a serious problem because Brazil is good to do that. We added the political crisis in the COVID. So the president was trying to use the line of like Sweden, but the governors were more in a lockdown idea. And then we had this fight also in the COVID, added to the COVID crisis. So we had serious problems, and like the Supreme Court supporting governments, and sometimes it was supporting the president. And it was fun. It added some pepper to the COVID. But in the end, we are in my state, for example, this week is the 10th week that we are decreasing the number of cases and deaths. So luckily we are overcoming this new, or I don't know how to say this. I think it's the first time in the modern humanity that we don't know what to do. So luckily we are recovering, and we will overcome this. Johanna mentioned also that the Amazon or the wetlands from Brazil, the Pantanal, they are burning, and I see a lot of things about the media and the maybe what the president is supporting the burnings and etc. But it's not true. The wildfires also in Brazil are really common in the Amazon and in the Pantanal, what we call the wetlands. So it's in Portuguese, but you can see the one from the left is the total of focus and fire focus, and the second one is the burned areas in square kilometers. And you can see that the last 2 years are they are above the average. But how the Brazilian media doesn't support much what the president says. Unfortunately, he's not a diplomat at all. He doesn't know how to talk sometimes. It's increasing the crisis. Sorry about the quality of the graph, but is how to show the importance of that Brazil takes on preservation. 66% of our country is natural and preserved areas, but I wanted to focus here on the percentage of native vegetation that is preserved for farmers inside our properties. It's 20% of the country is preserved in farmers' properties. Brazil has one of the most restricted reforestation laws. In my region, we have to maintain 20% of our own land in native vegetation. If you go in the middle of the country, it goes up to 35%. And if you have a farm in the Amazon, 80% of the farm has to be untouched land. So you have to have a legal farm, and then you can get loans on the bank. So it's quite amazing on what Brazilian farmers has to do to protect our vegetation. So what I learned from this crazy moment, that life is not a race. So if you need take some time, take it. But as I said before, do not take much. Give time to you to digest what is happening. Avoid comparisons with another scholars. Sometimes people take different measures to different views. Enjoy the learning. I think that Zoom's interviews, it's about training. Train yourself, and then you will be able to create this rapport that people are doing. It's almost when you see the face, you will be able to create this rapport even with the Zoom calls. You get practice. You get used to it. So, and we know nothing about this, and I think it's okay. Sometimes it's just to take decisions every day by day. This was really good to me on Australia, because I was trying to guess the future, and I was not able to do that. And sometimes we just need to live day by day and just keep with the flow. And COVID is reshaping our civilization, so we need to get focused on that. I don't know how much will be different, but it will be. So sometimes we're busy and we don't see the overall. And I think that COVID will showing us that. So thank you very much. I hope that it was useful for you guys, and I'm open to questions now.
Thank you, Ollavo. We've had a question come through. Oh no, sorry, it's a comment from Susan. Yes, we talked about major disruptors during their Nuffield conference in Iowa, and the comment is that we're certainly living through one. And I think that's true, because I think listening to both Johanna and Ollavo, you would agree that their scholarship was disrupted. Obviously not as much as yours has been yet, has been so far, but certainly they've walked in your shoes and were able to give you some good practical advice about how you can perhaps pivot, that word again, to make your scholarship work the best for you. And I think Ollavo mentioned the missing travelling syndrome. I think every 2020 scholar would know exactly what that is. I know what that is. So we've got some time now for some questions. Has anyone got any questions for Johanna or Ollavo? Great. What I'd like to do now, if we've got some people that still have time to stay on, is split into small groups. I think it's much easier to have a small group discussion than it is to have a discussion amongst 24 of us. So if you'll bear with me, I'll assign us into breakout rooms of just 3 or 4 to a room. And then we can have a quick chat about some of the things that have come up in your minds, talking to Johanna and Ollavo this evening, and then bring us back together and we'll have time for a few quick comments. So we've got about 15 minutes or so. So I'll just assign some breakout rooms. I'll have to do the maths. 7 breakout rooms. No, let's make it 6 breakout rooms. And then let's, if we can chat in our breakout rooms for, let's say, until exactly 8 p.m. And then those of us that are able to stay, sorry, it's not 8 p.m. wherever you are, it's 8 p.m. for me. So that's 17 minutes. So if we can have a maximum of 17 minutes, and then we'll come back together. Those of you who are still able to stay can give us a bit of feedback from each of the groups. See you soon. Hi, Jason. I can't hear you.
My apologies. Yeah,
That's all right.
I've just been doing
No.
kids and things got away.
We've just sent everyone to
Yeah,
breakout
how are you?
rooms. Good, good. Everyone's in breakout rooms. So I'm going to send you over to
Okay.
breakout room 4 because you've got still another 9 minutes. So you'll see Johnny over there and Kate and Ollavo, who was our presenter. So see you soon.
Okay, great.
Hang on.
See you. Thanks, Jody.
Hang on. How do I do that? Assign to breakout room 4. Okay, assign to. There you go.
Cheers.
See ya. Hello, James.
Howdy.
Coconut. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. So we've just come up to the hour now. So could I just quickly have one person from each of the groups, and you'll just have to stick up your hand if you're happy to nominate, to give us one learning that you were discussing in your group that you're going to take away from tonight. So who was breakout room 1? I don't know if we paid any attention to the names of the groups.
Jody,
Yeah.
just before, I think Teresa has a question.
Sure.
She didn't get into. And it's about how I did with my notes in the Zoom calls. I was doing like a small summary for each meeting that I'm going to use to write the final report. During my traveling, I did a lot of recording in the interviews because I think that's hard to take notes. So I just put my phone to record, and then I would listen to the interview again and take my notes with like a more with my own time. And I did also in the Zoom interviews. I would put the Zoom to record, and after that, because I like to talk and just kept the meeting flowing, and then I would watch the meeting again and then do the notes. So it's what I did, and then I would do a small summary and use it on the final report.
Thank you.
Sarah's just asked about a Zoom login. Yes, we do have a Zoom login that you can use. So it's unlimited time. Yeah. But yeah, I would agree with Johanna. You know, an hour and a half, kind of probably a limit for certainly for an interview style Zoom meeting. Yeah. Okay, so can we have Harry? Joe's had to go. Johanna's had to go. Harry, Andrew, Todd, or Teresa, you were group 1. You got a takeaway that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, I'll fire away if you like. I think I'll make it quick if you like. Ours was basically, we got stuck talking about how there's no one size fits all, and how it's a whole lot harder to get a ball rolling than it is to keep a ball rolling, because we had Johanna in our group, which was great. And, obviously for her finishing it off, she's struggling enough to keep the ball rolling and finish it off. And we were actually discussing the differences between the other 3 of us in, how we're getting the ball rolling, and that it's just not that easy. And that no one size fits all in that.
Yeah. Yeah. Good observation. James, Paula, Richie, or Shota-san?
Yeah, I can share some words, probably similar to group 1, really. Just talking about the fact that we're keen for, I guess, travel restrictions to ease up so we can get into some face-to-face interviews, but that's sort of not the case at the moment. So as it's difficult to do Zoom interviews and the like, you just got to try and dedicate some time towards it and bloody get into it.
Yeah, and
that's the gist of it. Yeah.
If I can just add there, I think, James, that very difficult because you haven't done any traveling to sort of try and do those Zoom interviews cold, and difficult, as you said, to get that ball rolling. But I would imagine that as things do ease up and you're able to do some travel, it'll gel a bit better. And I would imagine that you will be doing like a hybrid. You'll be doing some Zoom interviews and some travel, and maybe some Zoom interviews while you were traveling, concurrently. So I think that's what it'll end up looking like. which will make it, it'll feel
Yeah.
more natural then, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree, Jody. And I'd just add, if I can, probably just struggling with not having the time away out of your business to
Yeah.
have headspace to put into it, into your Nuffield. Just really struggling with being at work the whole time and
Yeah.
trying to find the time.
I thought that was a very interesting observation from Johanna. I think in Nuffield we talk about it a lot when you've come back and you're trying to write your report, but for you that's an issue right now, because you can't start traveling and start thinking, because once you travel you've got that time away. You're trying to be thinking while you're still working, if that makes sense. Difficult. Yeah. We had Jason, Johnny, Kate and Ollavo in a breakout room. Anything you'd like to share?
I don't mind sharing if
Yep.
that's okay with everyone.
Go for it, Kate.
Thanks,
Go for it.
Kate.
Jump.
Yeah, good.
Okay, I'll turn on my video. Sorry, I haven't had it on because it's very early morning here. Well, not very early anymore, but it was. So anyway, we agreed that we're all in pretty good businesses in terms of we're either in, we're in the food business regardless, whether that's seafood or agriculture. So our businesses all keep rolling while we are trying to navigate the new Nuffield. We talked about, the separation between the work that we do now on our Nuffield journey in terms of how we report or how we form our research or deliver our research, and that we're hoping that at some stage down the line that can then be part 2, where we travel and support the evidence that we generate in our first, maybe more desk-based and interview-based research. So we talked about when that might be, and we agreed that we didn't expect that to happen this year or next year. Hopefully it will be the following year. And we agreed that it was kind of a crucial element to the Nuffield journey that we really didn't want to miss out on. But separately we spoke about COVID and the impacts that it might have kind of going forward for relevant countries. And we spoke a bit about the topics that we were covering, and we all kind of made suggestions to each other if we had any about how we might reach out to other people and network with other people that might have similar interests. And we were very lucky to have Ollavo on our call, so he'd given the presentation. We spoke about his presentation quite a bit as well. So that's what we covered off. I don't know if you have any insight from that, but that's the brief.
I think that's an interesting insight that you're pushing us all the way back to 2022. I'm a bit more hopeful than fingers crossed.
Yeah, I think we're all hopeful that it will happen sooner, but we're just kind of reading what's going on now. Ireland is reduced down to 4 countries on our green list, and they're not really countries that I would have planned to go to. So yeah, I mean, who knows what will happen. Hopefully a vaccine will come along. We'll all get started back into our traveling really shortly. So we'll hope for that. Best case scenario. Yes,
that's right.
Yeah.
Hope for the best and plan for the worst. That's probably a good strategy.
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who else did we have? We had Andrew Ham, Antonio, John and Sarah, John Tyrrell and Sarah.
Right, maybe one of the scholars should be talking on this one, but maybe I'll just put in my tuppence worth first. I suppose a couple of takeaways. It's difficult to set aside the time for the work on scholarship and study at this stage. I think people are trying to find that balance between their own work and what they have to do in their life and just surviving through what's happening at the moment. And clearly travel restrictions are much harder in some parts than in others. The WhatsApp group, I suppose I was maybe contrasting the action on the 2020 WhatsApp group with other WhatsApp groups of previous Nuffield scholarships. 2019 is very, very active still. 2020 doesn't seem to be quite as active, but could be used as a platform to get scholars connected and put them in touch on some of the issues that are coming up. And perhaps that could be complemented with, as I think it was both Ollavo and Johanna made the point that putting a face on somebody, it makes a bigger impression and connects you better. So maybe the Zoom could be connecting Irish and UK and Australian scholars who did not have the full CSC experience, and therefore maybe that's a factor in the WhatsApp group not taking off the way it might have. And secondly, perhaps maybe a bit more focus from mentors and engaging mentors with their scholars. Again, there seems to be some mixed experiences in that regard. Some it's intermittent and others it's more regular, and I think it should be more regular. So carving out the time and dedicating time to Nuffield, I think that would be the big thing that people should try to focus on to get something more from it. So they're my takeaways. I don't know whether Sarah or Andrew or Antonio have anything more to add.
Yeah, the only thing I could add to that is, as we talked about, mentors are really important. So if your mentor hasn't been in touch with you, maybe get in touch with them. As I've said, I've had my mentor has been great. We have a connection through the wine industry, but I've also had 3 or 4 across Australia ring me on a regular basis just to see how I'm going. So yeah, that's been brilliant.
Yeah. And our final group was Frank, Jared and Ranger. I don't think I've missed anybody.
Yeah, hi Jody. We discussed how we are doing at home, but what a good thing was what Ranga said to us. While we can't travel, he learned more about the people in his own, in Zimbabwe, in his own industry. So he expanded his knowledge of who is working there and to meet up with that people, or directly or Zoom. So when he could travel again, he had some more info and knowledge of the people in his own background. And I think that's quite helpful for when we can travel again, that we have that extra information about your own country to get your time in that while you are waiting to travel. That was quite a good one, I think. Yeah.
Thanks, Frank. So we're nearing to an hour and a quarter, and I know everybody's got things to do. So were there any final comments before we finish for the evening? No? Great.
I just wanted to add, as John was saying, that the WhatsApp group is a great thing to connect. This webinar made me remember a lot of things about my scholarship. So I was only focused on the Nuffield Brazil more, and now listening to different accents and different ways of views brings me a lot of memories. So if you want to encourage your scholars from 2020 to be able to join the webinars, I think it's a great thing. It keeps up the faces and with the Zoom, and it's getting stronger the network within yourselves. So I strongly encourage you guys to invite as many 2020 scholars as you can.
Thanks, Ollavo. So on that note, I'd like to thank sincerely Ollavo for your presentation this evening. It was very valuable, I think, for our scholars, our 2020 scholars, and also Johanna, who's just had to leave to go to another function. But I think you'll agree that it's good to hear from other Nuffield scholars who have been through some of the challenges that COVID's been throwing up and have had some success with navigating those challenges, have found some positives out of it. You know, as Ollavo said, he felt a little bit like he was in the trenches down here in Australia when COVID hit, and he was trying to navigate his way home, literally and figuratively. So we will do this all again in another month's time. I'm hoping for that one we will have some participants from, or some guest speakers from the US. It's a little bit challenging with the time zone, so we may be changing it slightly to be able to accommodate the fact that we've got some wonderful people in our US network that would be very interesting for us to listen to, which will be the end of October, 28th of October. And then after that, we've got our week-long virtual Africa GFP starting on November the 23rd and going right through till Friday, which must be, I think, the 28th. So 5 hour-long sessions, 4 visiting farms and businesses, and the last one as a wrap-up. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. This video, or some of it, will be posted online, so we've had some apologies and they'll be able to listen in and see the slides after. But I do appreciate it, those that were able to attend this evening. I wish you all the best for the rest of your day or your evening. Bye everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jody. All the best.
Bye-bye. Thanks, guys.
So, yeah.
さよなら、シャトさん。